Hey everybody, this is Sean Riley with Riley Real Estate and MassHomesale.com with this week's Q&A Saturday video, coming to you on Sunday. A little busy yesterday, so shooting this a day late, but close enough. So this week I'm going to talk about should a investor have a real estate license? This is something I've gotten asked quite a few times. I've gotten asked many times over the years, but several times recently, so I thought I would do a video on that. So basically the question is, if you're going to be doing your own real estate investing, should you have a real estate license, so being a licensed agent or a realtor? So there are arguments for and against it. I personally have a real estate license in Massachusetts, so this is going to be based on my experiences. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's helpful. I also think that it does help with some, legally type things. Like some people argue that it actually hurts you in some situations, but I'm going to talk about why I don't really think that's the case. So some of the advantages of having a real estate license, first and foremost, and the one that even the people who say you shouldn't have a license will acknowledge is a big deal, is having access to the local MLS. Excuse me. So the multiple listing service. This is where you see all the properties that are listed by agents for sale, but you can also get information about closed sales and about pending sales, and you can get different information about trends in different cities and towns. Those of you who read my market trend reports that we put out on MassHomesale.com, that is where pretty much all that data comes from, is from the local MLS, and it would be very difficult to compile that data without it. You can get a lot of the information through places like Zillow and Trulia and other stuff like that, but it's much more difficult to get the information quickly and easily. So MLS access, definitely a huge advantage. I use that all the time to evaluate properties that I'm looking at, if they're listed or even if they're not listed. That's the big thing. Is like, even if you are talking to people who don't have their properties listed for sale with an agent, you use the MLS to figure out what the value of the property is, so you know what to offer them. Excuse me. Second big advantage is that I can make my own appointments to see places that are listed and make my own offers on them. This doesn't come up as much for normal sellers and stuff, but is a big deal with like bank-owned properties. So if I see interesting REOs and stuff, or short sales, or other kind of distressed things like that that are working with like banks as opposed to humans, I don't have to coordinate with an agent to set up a showing and then put in the offer. I do that all the time. I work with other agents because I don't work primarily as an agent. I work primarily as an investor in both my rentals and my rehab projects. So I'm more than happy to work with other agents when they find a deal, and they do their agent work in order to earn their commission and stuff like that. I'm more than happy to do that because that's their bread and butter. That's not what I'm looking to do. But I'm not restricted by that. So now I can go look at places that other people don't bring to me, or I have to call up somebody that I'm working with and be like, hey, can you make an appointment to go see this? And then wait for it to work with both of our schedules and get over there, and and then, like I said, have them submit the offers. So it just is a hassle I don't have to deal with. The next very obvious one is that as an agent, I can actually collect commissions. So again, sometimes for these bank-owned properties, and certainly for anything that's not listed via a bank, there is usually a commission offered to the agent that brings the eventual buyer, even if the buyer is myself or my company. So that obviously is a different profit center, so I can either get a bigger cushion on my projects, or have a lower basis in a rental, or I can just offer that much more for the property if I need that negotiating room as well. So if there's several $1,000s that I would be entitled to that my agent would have been entitled to otherwise, I can use that as a bargaining chip, because if I'm getting that money, that's that much more that I can offer for it, or I can offer to just not take the commission and offer the same amount, sort of thing. So it gives some flexibility there, and another profit center, for a deal. There's other intangible things, but those are really the big ones that I see all the time, and I think make it easily the better decision to have one. If you're thinking, if you don't want one, then fine, don't get one. But if you think you might want to have one, I think the advantages far outweigh the negatives. So the negatives I hear are mostly around disclosures, legal stuff, sellers not liking the fact that you're an agent. Those are really the big ones. Oh, I guess, and the cost of maintaining your license. So the first couple things. So for disclosures, some people are saying, agents are held to a higher standard, so you have to tell people about stuff about properties that you might not have to otherwise. That's not really true for the most part. Pretty much all the laws are going to say that if you know something about a property, you have to disclose it as the owner or as an agent. So that really doesn't matter. If being held to the code of ethics is going to be a problem for you, then that's a personal problem. That's not a problem with having a license. And frankly, just because somebody says you're not supposed to lie, if you're going to lie, it doesn't really matter if you have a license or not. Secondary, the disclosure thing about disclosing that you are an agent. So if I go and I'm talking to somebody about selling their house, I have to tell them that I'm a licensed agent. I'll have them sign a disclosure, letting them know that that I'm not representing them, and that's pretty much that for the most part. Sometimes people are getting in touch with investors because they don't want to work with agents. That's fine. If that is a complete hang-up for them, maybe you will lose a deal here or there through that. For the most part, people don't care that much, and even if they do, if you just explain that you're buying the house for yourself via all these disclosures and whatnot, and not trying to list it, for the most part, people will still talk to you, and if you, stick to your word, then it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But, there's a small possibility that could be a problem. Another argument is people are saying if you ever did get sued, that you'd be held to a higher standard than just a regular real estate investor. Again, it's probably not really true. If somebody you buy a house from gets mad and sues you, the judge is going to look at you as the professional person who knows more and took advantage of the, poor, misguided house seller. If you have a license or not. Maybe if it was like on your first deal, they might have less sympathy for you because you had a license than if you didn't, but for the most part, that's not going to really come up as being a big deal. Finally, and the one real legitimate criticism I see is the cost of maintaining your license and all the other things that go along with it. It's not particularly expensive, but you do have to pay for your coursework. You do have to pay generally a licensing fee to your state. Sometimes you might have additional ones as well for local boards and such. You do have to pay for your MLS access. You do have to get affiliated with a broker, and generally there's going to be some sort of office dues. You're going to have to pay for insurance, desk fees and stuff. Depending on the brokerage, there could be a whole bunch of fees or only a couple of fees. I'm in one that has pretty low fees overall, but I do still have stuff that I have to pay. And then on an ongoing basis, you will have to take continuing education, and you will have to pay more fees to the state to get recertified after whatever period is. In Massachusetts, it's 2 years. And like I said, those brokerage dues and MLS fees and stuff are going to be reoccurring throughout, annually. MLS for us at least is quarterly. So those are real costs. They're not super expensive, especially if it's helping you do deals, but it is something to keep in mind. And then obviously the other thing is if you do actually work as an agent, you have to do commission splits and stuff like that. And you generally will have to do that even if you buy and sell your own properties. But like I said, it's kind of like you get something or you get nothing. So I don't look at that as being a huge disadvantage. But that is the biggest one I would see, is just the cost of maintaining a license, especially if you're not using it. If you're not going to use it, then it's a waste of money. If it's helping you with your work, then it's a good investment in my opinion. So obviously I'm very pro-license from what I'm telling you here, and I don't think most of the arguments against having one are all that good. So that's my opinion in a nutshell. So I would advise anybody who thinks that a license will benefit them to get one. If you don't think so, don't get one. But certainly the arguments, if you're on the fence, I think sway way towards getting one than not. Alright, so as always, thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them below. And if there's anything you would like to have answered in a future video, you can leave a comment, fill out a form on the website, put something on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, or send an email to info@masshomesale.com. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks, bye.